In this episode of the Tech John, we discussed 23andMe filing for bankruptcy. A facial recognition company tried to buy SSN's for its database, and several senators want to repeal Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. We've got all this and more for you in episode 171 of the Tech John from Columbus, Ohio. I'm your host, Robb Dunewood.
And coming out of Philly, it's your girl Tech Life Steph.
And out of Atlanta, this is Terrance Gaines, a.k.a. Brother Tech, a.k.a. The Godfather. I finally got a chance to see my goddaughter today. Some friends of ours from college, longtime friends, they sprung it on us shortly after they had their child. They was like, we want to do a Zoom call. We was like, oh, you want to have a Zoom call? Well, what's going on? What y'all about to drop on us? You know, so mine was going crazy, but we had the Zoom call, and at the end, they asked me and my wife to be the godparents. So hyped about that. But this was back in December sometime. So they finally, you know, I'm old school when it comes to babies. It's like, keep the baby in the house for 6 months. For real. Let the baby marinate a little bit more. You know what I'm saying?
It'll
before you bring them out in the world.
To get a job.
Yeah. So, but they said, hey, you know, I was tell them about my son's soccer games. You know, I was like, yeah, he got a game today. He's got a game tomorrow. It's like, oh, what time is it tomorrow? So I shot him this is Saturday. So I shot him the directions and all the details for my son's Sunday game that just happened over this past weekend, and they showed up. So we got a chance to see the baby, and they came to the house, and babies ain't changed after all these years. Babies are still out here babying, pooping a bunch of times or smile in your face and then bleh, spit right down. Like, baby, check. Babies are still babies.
Yeah. Did you make him an offer he couldn't refuse?
Oh, nah. So me, even if there is a closer connection to a baby, because I'm like, I don't touch other people's babies. I only touch my babies. I don't even touch them. Right. So this one was a little bit different, but even still, I just touched the knees, or I touched a little fat on top of over the skin, and like, you know, do little baby faces. And then
are you gonna have to be the one, like, at the day already baptizing, or are they baptizing him?
Yeah, they're going to have a ceremony. Right? Yeah, they're going to have a ceremony, and we're going to attend. I think it's in May. So, you know, trying to get in shape now so I can look right in my church clothes.
Okay.
You know, so I can represent.
Trying to button that jacket up again.
Button it up, and it's not fighting.
So Terrance is the Godfather. So now you're gonna have to start whispering when you talk and do like this with your hands all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I make them ask for a favor.
Yeah. So, folks, before we get to the tech stories, I want to let everybody know that there is a great way to support the Tech John financially if you so choose to do so. You can do that by heading over to thetechjohn.com. That's the techjawn.com/Patreon, where you will find multiple tiers, any one of which gets you access to an ad-free stream when you're listening in your podcatching app. So once again, head over to patreon.com/thetechjohn or thetechjohn.com/Patreon. So with that, y'all, we don't have a lot of stories to talk about, but we got some big ones. And this first one is 23andMe is filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Now, we have talked a lot about 23andMe back in 2023 when they had that ginormous data breach. I think 7 million people's DNA data got exfiltrated out of the company. But DNA testing firm 23andMe has filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection to facilitate a sale after years of financial struggles. Co-founder and CEO Ann Wojcicki resigned immediately, intending to become an independent bidder for the company, with CFO Joe Ceslovich stepping in as an interim CEO. So the board basically got together and said the only way we think that we can salvage this company is to go through bankruptcy. So I want to throw some numbers out there for y'all, because at one point in 2020, 2021, when they went public, 23andMe was worth $6 billion with a B. And as of the time of the filing of this bankruptcy protection, 50 billion. It is not even worth that anymore. Why? Because when the news broke of this happening, the stock
fell off.
sold off today. People are trying to get rid of it. So basically, they ran this company into the ground. It was worth $6 billion, and it is now worth somewhere south
But
of 50 million.
let me stop you right there, because was it though? You know, this is a company that has never been
Mm-hmm.
profitable. They've never generated any revenue, on net positive. So, like, I think this is another one of those instances where Silicon Valley overinflates to get a unicorn, because that's just the game that they're all out there playing, and this is what you get. There's absolutely no way a company that's never made money should ever have had a $6 billion valuation, ever, under any circle. I don't care what you, there's nothing you can say to me that would justify a $6 billion valuation on a company that's never made any money. and
On,
and that just speaks to the problem with Silicon Valley and these startups. They play the pieces like it's a game to them. And
mhm.
it's just, and it's nonsense. It's absolute fucking nonsense.
Yeah, and I was going to add on top of DNA testing ain't nothing new. Genealogy testing ain't nothing new. Ancestry been out here for a minute. And then 23andMe shows up and it's like, oh, what makes 23andMe any different than Ancestry? You know, so it's, I say that because I could see if 23andMe like completely new, something brand new, we ain't never done, think of like Uber with ride sharing. Ain't nobody, well, nobody, you know, publicly trying to get in no stranger's car, and then here come Uber. Now it's like, oh, this is like
Well,
the
if you
norm.
lived in the hood, the jitney man was
Well, you know
always
what I'm saying. We don't play
they
that,
just
but
made jitneys mainstream. That's all they did. They
yeah,
gentrified
hacks.
jitneys.
Yeah. But you know, that's something that, you know, just as an example, they came out with, you know, this is the new stage versus 23andMe. It's like, you know, DNA genealogy testing has been out for a while. So I don't understand why, again, but we know the answer why, because Stephanie mentioned it, because it's just something new that came along. It was trendy. We loved it. You know, everybody was getting
Until we didn't.
until, which is the answer to your question. I'm jumping ahead here. Until it was found that 23andMe was selling your information all over the place. That's when it said, all right, wait.
Yeah, they had this massive breach back in 2023. And we talked about it a lot on this, about why this is why we don't really rock with these kind of companies that do this kind of stuff. But here's the
At
thing.
all.
It wasn't just that they had a data breach. This company, you spit in a cup. You know, they have your DNA, and they handled the breach literally as poorly as possibly could be handled by a company of that stature with that kind of information. It was, you know, acting like it was really not, so it wasn't a big deal. And that, I think that, if as much as anything else, is contributing to this, because I hear what you were saying about this company was significantly overvalued, but I'm just thinking, if I just do the quick math, it's like 50 million goes into 100 million twice, and 100 million goes into a billion 10 times. So that's 20. And then a billion goes into 6 billion 6 times. So that's like six. So that's like 120 times, you know, lower than what you was at one point. That's kind of ridiculous. And I really think that it comes back on this. Now, here are some of the things that I think people need to be paying attention to. If this company gets sold, which it probably will be, we do know that the former CEO is one of the bidders, is trying to buy the company, you know, trying to buy the company back and keep running it. But it could be someone else.
Hold that thought. Ain't no way that I'd have founded a company and then I need to step outside the company to try to buy the company back to regain ownership. That's another problem. Everybody's trying to go public until you get pushed out of your own company by the board. You ain't gonna look. I ain't got billions of dollars to play with. I ain't got no unique idea that can turn into this monstrous company. But if I did, it's gonna be private, because what you're not about to do is make me sell my own company. But that's all I want to say about that.
Happens
So
all
go
the
ahead.
time. Yeah.
Well, it's going bankrupt now, so the court's going to determine what's going to happen and who's ultimately going to be able to buy it. But here is another thing that has to happen. So 23andMe has data standards on what they will do with their data, with your data, how they were protected, them selling it or not selling it, all that kind of stuff. If it gets bought by another company, and it's kind of weird how they put out how they put out an answer to this, like, well, if we are purchased by another company, all data standards will remain intact until such time as we notify you that we've changed things.
Until the other company changes it. Yeah.
Exactly. So I don't tend to tell people what to do. So I will just say, if it were me, if I were someone who had put my DNA in this company, and I now know that they are going to be sold, through bankruptcy, I would be doing everything in my power possible to delete everything they have on me, because here's what you don't know: it's going through bankruptcy. There are going to be, I'm certain that there will be companies represented by, that are funded and represented by insurance companies that may want to want this data. This data will be very valuable to an insurance company.
Well, see, that's the thing. The data is the most valuable asset here.
And 23andMe was selling it.
Yes.
They was
Nobody
selling
wants anything else that this company has besides the data.
Right.
They don't want the technology. They don't want
don't want the
whatever
people.
algorithms y'all were using. They don't want the team. They want the data. The data is the most valuable asset that 23andMe has right now. And that's basically the only bargaining chip they have in this whole negotiation for this sale. What people also need to understand is this data is not HIPAA protected. HIPAA applies when it's you and your doctor, you and your psychologist, when it's medically related. This is considered a consumer company that you purchased a consumer product from when you gave them your money. So this information is not HIPAA protected, and they can do whatever they want with it. To your point, Rob, about deleting, 3 things you should be thinking about deleting right now, because you have to do them separately. You have to delete your genetic data, you have to destroy your test sample, and you have to revoke permission for your genetic data to be used for research. So don't just go in there and think I'm gonna close my account or just delete my account and that takes care of everything. You have to do 3 different things to remove your genetic data from the platform. So make sure you're digging into those settings and really getting rid of everything.
A buddy of mine, you actually know him, Steph Amos. He actually went through this today to try to delete.
Amos from Alaska.
Yeah. He went through this today, and he said that it was not for the faint at heart. It took him. He said it took him well over an hour to go through everything. And now he does admit, he says part of it could be the fact that everybody is trying to do it at the same time. And he said that he's being honest. It's not like he was getting 404 errors or you couldn't do anything like that. It's just that the website was moving incredibly slow. So it could be that the news broke today and that slowed it down. He was willing to give that benefit of the doubt, but he definitely wanted to go through it just so he could experience and then talk about it. Here was what my experience was. And he said it took well over an hour to do it, because it's like, man, this page is just like, it's just sitting here. You can see that it's loading and it wants to go to the next one, but everybody and their mom is probably trying to get off of 23andMe right now. So your results may vary, but I would, like I said, I don't tell people what to do. I would just strongly caution that you think of it like this. 23andMe has a set of standards where they have told you what they will do with your data, how they're going to deal with your data. And as Terrance has been saying, they was not necessarily doing what they should have been doing before. And that's one of the reasons why they're in the situation they're in right now. But all that being said, all of that goes away when they get bought. All the company that buys them has to do, and they will do this, is send you an email letting you know that their terms of service has changed and that they will use your data however they see fit to generate profit. So, like I said, I would never be in this system in the first place. But if you find yourself in it, I would probably be trying to figure out how to get myself out of it, because you can just assume that whatever the worst case scenario is for how your data is going to be treated, just assume that's what's going to happen and act accordingly. act
Pretty
accordingly.
much. And I mean, it's bad when the Attorney General of California actually issued a statement saying y'all better delete y'all data. Like,
Mhm.
we don't know what's going to happen, but we recommend y'all delete y'all data. And California actually has the Genetic Information
Mhm.
Privacy Act as a part of their California Consumer Protection Act that kind of helps Californians with this kind of thing. I feel like Saray's point in the comments, she's like, it's going to be difficult to undo because the data has already been sold and shared with third parties. I mean, I don't believe for a second that your data is not already out there somewhere.
Mhm.
The whole business model for a lot of these ancestry things, but 23andMe in particular, was to work with pharmaceutical companies to provide this kind of data for drug development. So it's already in the
Mhm.
ether. It's already out there. And I mean, this is the cost of doing business on the internet these days. It really, really is.
That might be
And
true.
I just want to go ahead, Rob,
I
and
was going to
I'll
say that
close it
might
out.
be true, but I'm still going to recommend
Oh,
assume that the
absolutely.
worst will happen with your data.
Absolutely.
And if you can go and delete it and get it out of 23andMe before they get bought by a company where you
Absolutely.
absolutely do not want, is your data already been sold and you're 23andMe customer? Depending on when you were a customer, yes, it had been. But right now, if it hadn't been sold to the worst possible companies you can think, just assume that it might be and act accordingly. That is
Mhm.
my little recommendation and my tip for Monday, March 24th.
And so I want to give a shout out to my homegirl. I've said it before. I'll say it again. Shout out to my homegirl, Gina Page of AfricanAncestry.com, not Ancestry.com,
Okay.
AfricanAncestry.com. And she created her company specifically for one, of course, to track your African ancestry roots. They do it through your maternal DNA as opposed to your paternal, which will get you all over the place. And number two, the main reason why I would promote her is because they destroy the data. Once you give them your samples, once they create your little kit that gives you your ancestry, they destroy your, they don't keep it, they don't store it, they don't sell it, they don't market it, they destroy your data. So if you feel like you really want to go through and give somebody your DNA, I would advocate for if you go to AfricanAncestry.com. And Brother Tech is not a client. I'm not a spokesperson. I'm just sharing the love.
We appreciate it. I still ain't doing that shit though.
That's why I
I'm
said,
like,
if you
I ain't
must,
giving nobody
if
my
you must.
DNA except my doctor. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
I understand why people wanted to do this. I absolutely get it. So no shade, no judgment. However, when things like this happen,
Just know.
these are the kind of things you're going to have to deal with. So
Mhm.
you really do have to be so sort of judicious and discerning about how you just spread your information. Your digital footprint
Mm-hmm.
can really truly come back to haunt you. And it's a shame that this is what has happened to this company. I mean, I thought they were gonna be as big and robust as Ancestry.com was, and here they filing bankruptcy, so you just never know.
Steph, I believe that we named one of the episodes where we talked about this back in 2023 after something you said. I believe the name of the show is I Ain't Spitting in No Cup. And here's the reason why
That sounds about right.
I distinctly remember the conversation is like, because once I give you this data, you can tell me what you're going to do with it. But if you do something different with it, then I'm just ass out. What am I supposed to do now?
That's
and that's why you
Nothing.
said I would not. I'm just not going to do it. So, Terrance, I like what your homegirl's doing. What did you say her name was? Angela Page?
Gina Page.
Gina Page.
And the website is AfricanAncestry.com.
So there you go. Y'all gonna like,
and we all got some African ancestry in us, so everybody probably can use it and benefit from finding out where the roots really lie.
yeah, that is true. So y'all gonna probably like how how this next story is gonna tie into what we were just talking about. But facial recognition company Clearview attempted to buy social security numbers and mugshots for its database. So Clearview AI is the controversial facial recognition company that attempted to acquire hundreds of millions of arrest records, including social security numbers, mugshots, and email addresses to enhance its product, according to 404 Media. For years, the company had scraped billions of photos from the social media platforms like Facebook, LinkedIn, selling its facial recognition recognition technology to law enforcement, the revelation that a private surveillance firm was collecting and distributing user-generated photos without consent led to widespread international backlash when the New York Times exposed its practices back in 2020. So I read through this. I'm like, oh, was there a law? Was there something? No, what they were trying to do is completely legal. This is a company that goes out and they scrape pictures from everything and create a database on it. And they wanted to, let's see if we can get some mugshots so we can match who these mugshots are and see if we could tie these social security numbers. Why would we want to do that? Because we're going to be able to make more money if our data set is more valuable. And that's ultimately what this would do. But there wasn't a law that stepped in and said, nah, y'all might not want to do this. They didn't get pulled in front of Congress who said, okay, explain to us while we work on some legislation that maybe we'll put some parameters around y'all. It was, they didn't like how the deal was going to be structured for basically how the data was going to be used after they purchased it or sold it. So ultimately, they couldn't agree on how you was going to get paid after the fact for new stuff you might use and figure out to do with this data. So they just couldn't come together on a deal, and they're each suing each other, for breach of contract and this and that and the other. But like I'm telling y'all, it's like, just think if this company they actually were able to get this deal done where they go out and they buy all these mugshots and social security numbers, and they say, you know what? They only $50 million. Let's see if we can go buy 23andMe. Now let's see if we can match up these pictures, these mugshots, these social security numbers to these people's DNA, where we know everything else about them. And who might be interested in that? I bet an insurance company might want to know. If you could track someone.
Please, the FBI and the CIA want to know that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, they're already selling the stuff to police agencies and government agencies. That those are their biggest customers. But it's like, y'all, you got to pay attention to stuff. It's like we bring this news to you to tell you what is happening, and it's like, people, these companies are going to use your data and make as much money as they possibly can off of it, as long as it is legal for them to do so.
What I don't understand, though, in this case is most, and I don't know how it is in every single state, but in most states, arrest records are public. So why wouldn't you just scrape the arrest records the same way you scraped millions of people's social media accounts to get the data that started your database in the first place? I don't know why you had to go to the. I mean, I guess if you just want some aggregate data and you don't want to have to do the work, and they have this cache of data already ready with millions of records, and then you're just like, it's just easier to just pay however much money to buy this data. But arrest records are just almost just as public as people's social media profiles mostly are. So you could have just scraped the internet to get that stuff as well.
Imagine an AI company, their whole back end technology ain't AI. They just paying people to obtain data. That's my whole thing. It's like, y'all supposed to have this new fancy AI that can automatically pull this data and scrape this data. Come to find out, y'all just trying to pay people to get data. I'm like, that ain't AI. So what are we doing here? What are we doing? What are we doing here?
Yeah, and I think this deal probably predates a lot of the LLM stuff that we're doing right now. And even if you were to use LLMs for that, you got to go get script engineers and pay people to write the to write the queries that they're going to go pull this data and then put it in a situation to where that data can ultimately match up to something else, or you could just go and buy it. Which one of those things get you to your end game quicker? For them, it might have been, let's go out and buy this. But the thing is here is like, yeah, could they go out and get it? They could, but other companies have already spent the money to do that and they sell the data. Right. So why not? Why do we need to go redo that work? Let's just buy it. I think that's what one of those things, how this came. And who knows, maybe they will go out and try to scrape it now themselves and get it on themselves. But you would imagine if the data sets they were buying were actually good data sets. So it's viable data.
With the administration we have right now, I don't think they're going to have to go out and buy anything. I feel like Trump would be more than happy to cut a deal, considering Elon Musk and his 18-year-olds was all up and through our Social Security information not less than 30 days ago. I don't see this, and considering Donald Trump is now what's the word I'm looking for? You can buy ads for the official White House Easter egg roll. this year. So he's literally selling the Easter egg roll. So the idea, it's not a very short, it's not a stretch to think that if Clearview AI or any other company out there wanted access to our personal information that the government stores, he wouldn't sell it to them. It's not a stretch to think that he wouldn't sell it to the highest bidder, because that's what he's doing currently. He's selling
Unless
Easter eggs to the highest bidder. So what's the social security number or two?
unless Clearview uses their information to the whole again, the whole point of Clearview is to help law enforcement better identify people, right? Stop crimes, whatever the case may be. I can see it being an issue if Elon Musk don't want Clearview to thrive, because that means I'm just making this scenario up here. What if one of them Teslas ran into somebody and Clearview, sitting up in the intersection with this camera, is able to drill down and figure out the Tesla user, find out their all their information, and then that implicates Tesla into a lot of these fatal crashes. Then Musk is gonna be like, hey, wait a minute, let's think about this. I can see that being a negative to the White House, just force it, or just allowing Clearview to do whatever. If they little homeboy may get a raw deal on the back end of this one.
Here's what the sad thing from my perspective, and I imagine y'all's perspective too, about just the way things are. You could just come up with the craziest conspiracy theory type stuff, and it sounds so plausible just because you know who the actors are. I can see that. I could literally, like Stephanie, you just said, that to be clear, we don't have any evidence that Donald Trump is trying to sell people's social security numbers, but we can all say, well, somebody makes him the right offer, that he could do it. And that's what's the crazy part about that.
Right.
I don't necessarily think that regardless of who you may have leaned for before, like whether it was, Democrat, Independent, or Republican, I don't think that we were thinking presidents before Donald Trump was like, if they can make money off of selling your social security, information, they would just do it because it's going to enrich them. Maybe you do think that. I don't necessarily know that I thought that about any president that I voted for or didn't vote for since I've been old enough to vote. So it's just kind of crazy, where we are. But just back on this story, like I said, I want to let folks know why this deal didn't go through. Was it says ultimately the deal fell apart after Clearview and ICI, that's the company they were trying to buy the data from, clashed about the utility of the data, with each company filing breach of contract claims. Like I said, the utility of the data. So they were having a problem with, okay, if we sell this data to you and then you do some really cool stuff, or we do some really cool stuff, what we get from you, then how do we get paid? They could not work that part out. There was nothing from the government that was shutting this down. It was these two greedy companies. I don't know that these two companies didn't, they could not work out a deal. But like I said, I put this right after the other story because it's like, okay, what if Clearview decides, you know what, let me go see if I can make a run at 23andMe. Now we can take this facial recognition database that we have, and we can tie it up against people's actual DNA data. Would that be of value to anyone? There's a whole heck of a lot of companies that would be very, very valuable for.
Yeah, we're cooked as far as privacy goes in this country. Like we can just assume we don't have any, and govern ourselves accordingly. Like if you have any sort of electronic anything, your privacy is cooked.
Well, definitely freeze. Now, before it was like, you may have been susceptible to a data breach. Go freeze your credit report. Now, just keep your credit report on froze
Right.
until you need something. Unfreeze it,
Right.
hit the thing, and then lock it back down.
And lock it back down. Seriously,
Yeah.
it's just it's pretty insane.
I can't think of the service, but I think they call it credit lock, to where you just, like you said, just lock it down. It's like I'll unlock it when I got questions. If I don't unlock it, don't let nobody ask any questions. It's crazy.
It's nonsense.
So y'all, this next story, this is probably where we want to spend most of our time talking. Steph, I know you have some ideas on this, but lawmakers, particularly senators, want to repeal Section 230. And our title is this a good thing or a bad thing? So I'll just read this and then we can get into the discussion. Senators Lindsey Graham and Dick Durbin plan to reintroduce a bill to sunset Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act within 2 years, a proposal that will eliminate longstanding legal protections for web services and users, fundamentally impacting how the internet operates. Graham has been pushing for this repeal since 2020. So just to tell folks, if you don't know exactly what Section 230 is, it protects interactive computer services and their users from legal liability for content created by others. So let's say that you are on Facebook and you're a Facebook user and someone else creates this heinous, untrue post about someone and they post it to Facebook to the point to where it's like, it's literally libelous. It's just very, very bad information.
And it's viral
and it goes viral and everybody now gets to it. You can't go and sue Facebook for having this information because Facebook didn't create it. This, Section 230 keeps Facebook from being held liable for that data that somebody else put on the system. There are bad things about this because we know that there's a thing called cyberbullying. This is why, Steph, I wanted to get your take on this about, kids can say some horrible things and kids react to horrible things that are said, sometimes by taking their own lives. So it's kind of like, come on, Facebook, come on, X, come on, Twitter, come on, LinkedIn, whatever the platform is like, y'all have to do better. But on the other side of this, I just found this out recently, but I think it was back a few years ago. Senator Amy Klobuchar, who's a Democrat, who was also signing on to this. She actually proposed legislation that would have given the person who heads up human health services organization, basically now Kennedy Jr. is now doing this. It would have given them the ability to determine what is. They basically could say what is medical misinformation, what is what is misinformation, what isn't. That one person would have the ability to do that. So my gut would tell me that when she actually proposed that bill back when it was probably someone who was appointed by the president that she aligns with politically, she would have been cool with it. My gut tells me now, would you still be cool with Kennedy? This dude has said that, basically we should just let measles just spread through so it gets everybody. What absolutely happens when you do that? More kids are going to die from measles if you just let kids get measles. But don't let that that get in the way of a good idea. I wonder if the truth is somewhere in the middle. Don't just have it go away, but don't just leave it completely wide open like it is now to where you can't hold these companies liable for anything. I think maybe the truth would be somewhere in the middle. And I really want to get your opinion on that stuff.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because the sticking point has always been that tension, right? Between whether or not the company can be held liable for what gets posted on the platform versus whether or not the companies are overreaching when they do censor content. So that's always been why we still have Section 230, because Republicans and Democrats can't get together on which of those two things is the more important priority. I don't, I mean, I guess you can make a case for censorship, quote unquote censorship, if we, are allowing companies to use their own editorial judgment in what they allow on the platform and don't allow on the platform. So I guess there is a little bit of an argument to be made for both of those things to be addressed. I don't know how you get something that everybody can agree on when people are so diametrically opposed and they're either in one or the other of those camps. I think we do need something that sort of goes down the middle of those two things, but it's going to be a very, very tough sell to get people to agree on which of those things is more important. And in the meantime, young people will continue to take worst case scenarios, and have to navigate and I mean, and then I don't know if 2 years is enough time to figure this out. Also, I don't necessarily see Elon Musk again, because we have somebody in the White House now with the president's ear who's ostensibly pulling the strings. If you did have the first part of that in there where the companies could be sued, Elon Musk ain't letting that shit go. He's not letting that pass. Because I mean, that literally Twitter would be, hit with
Mhm.
a billion lawsuits that next day that
Mhm.
went through. So that's not going to happen. And I don't see Democrats letting the other side of it happen. The part where, the platforms don't get to censor. I don't see Democrats letting that happen without letting the platforms be held accountable. So I see this not working at all, unfortunately.
Yeah,
Just
and you add on the lobbyists, these tech companies, they
mhm.
send millions and millions and millions of money to lobby on behalf of them. You've got the who's the guy that runs the FTC, I think, is, in the pocket of the White House. I don't know the guy's
Mm.
name, but, so it's going to be a tough road to hoe for any sort of legislation because everybody's so diametrically opposed to how the internet and social media services should be run, even just from regular people. One half of us will say, company websites, social media platforms should be held responsible when they are complicit,
Mm.
or you can prove that the spread of this thing that caused this terrible outcome that could only have been done via social media. Had social media not been around, or had there been tighter regulations, you could say that, you know, social media made it spread like wildfire.
Mm.
But then on the opposite end, like Stephanie mentioned, I don't want, whomever is running Facebook at the time to be like, well, this is important. And then, 2 weeks later, oh, now this is important. And they're policing data based on vibes. Right. So you don't want that either.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Mhm.
middle ground is going to be tough for this one, to make a long story
Very
short.
tough.
Here's
Like damn near impossible.
here's why I think that the situation is a little bit different. The reason I think the situation is a little bit different is that if you were to basically go and say, okay, the left, if for those who are center left, they probably are a little bit more anti Section 230 than those that are center right. That's just kind of how it goes. The Democrats think that they don't really like the law because they want to be able to go after Facebook, and they want to be able to go after X, and they want to be able to go after Snapchat and whomever else may be harming whomever they may be harming. And then the other side is like, no, you can't allow people that on these social platforms that they post something crazy, and now you're going to go and sue the company that allowed the post to exist on their platform out of existence. There's got to be something in the middle. The reason I think things are different right now is because the president, Donald Trump, hates the fact that he can't sue everybody who does not allow him to have unabashed free speech on their platform. So he's gone after everyone who and these companies are rolling over and settling multi-million-dollar lawsuits because he was censored here and he was censored there. So he is the one that is he cannot stand Section 230 because it has basically allowed him not to lie on some of these platforms the way that he wants to be able to. So with that being said, and I still believe that right now you have a lot of MAGA folks in Congress that are just going to go lock and step with whatever he says. So if you can get enough of them they're going to go with what the president wants, and you already have Democrats who are already kind of 230 is just bad. We need to come up with something else. There, to me, is a chance that they may actually overturn this. We'll wait. Today is Monday. It hasn't been announced today, but it's supposedly, an announcement could come out this week about whether or not they actually will get enough to start getting some votes on this particular bill. So, like I said, I don't know. I think the truth is somewhere in the middle. I don't think that you should just be able to say whatever you want, and the company just my hands are up. I can't help it. I don't think it should be that, but I also don't think that you can say something and the company is held liable to it to the extent that they are sued out of existence, even if they are trying to actually go and take some of this stuff offline. Different platforms have different rules, and I think that the truth is truth moves. It's like a sliding scale depending on which platform you're on. Free speech is free depending on what side of the platform you're on, depending on what side of the spectrum you sit on, and that's a problem too. But like I said,
that's gonna be the issue. I mean, if the administration forces the hand of Congress, it's only going to be in defense of unfettered speech on the platform. They're not going to care about suing anybody and whatever else. It's going to be, you can't restrict what I say. And then that's just good. I mean, that's going to be kind of the end of social media as we know it, honestly, because it's going to open a floodgate for just anything, literally. So we'll see where.
And social media companies are going to stop moderating. They're going to stop putting all that money.
They've already done that.
Or they will just no longer allow that kind of they will moderate. Like it go the other way too. They will moderate so heavily that it's just unusable. So I mean, I think they say that like the Section 230 is the 26 words that define what the internet is over the last 30 years. It's kind of true.
It pretty much is. I see Blue Sky becoming even more popular. I think, a federated, distributed platform where, the people in the particular thread can sort of monitor and keep an eye on what people are saying is going to have to be the way to go, because the companies aren't going to do it anymore. And you just cannot have unfettered speech online. You just can't have it. It's chaos. It would devolve into chaos as it already has for anybody that's
this little small sample, comparatively sample we got so far. The links that people will go to just for the sake of the gram, right?
It's a mess. It's a whole mess. And this would, unfortunately, as much as I don't like Section 230, I think repealing it would make things worse, and at least under this administration. If a different administration, a different Congress, you get a whole different outcome. But under this administration, I think repealing it would make it worse. Would make the internet and social media even worse.
I definitely think so, because I mentioned it earlier, but back in 21, that's when Amy Klobuchar, she introduced an amendment to Section 230, and all that would have done was allowed the Health and Human Services head, the secretary, which is now John F. Kennedy Jr. They would
Robert F. Kennedy.
I'm sorry, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Let me make sure I got the name right. It would have allowed that person to determine what is health misinformation. And that is a moving scale, because health information is different today than it was 9 weeks ago. I mean, it literally just is. So they need to figure something out. I don't know that repealing is a good thing, because like I said, I kind of like the internet. I don't want
right now.
I say this all the time on the show. The internet is a wonderful, horrible place. There is a lot of good to it, but I see, I see that we're such a litigious country that if they get rid of this, you're going to have the administration currently, they're going to sue everyone out of existence, because
everybody's going to sue.
Yeah.
The parents whose young people took their lives because they were being bullied will sue. And the woman, she's already suing, the woman that whose son killed himself because he had an AI girlfriend, and just like everybody's going to be suing. And so then nothing will get done, because the courts will be absolutely backlogged and hamstrung by the lawsuit. It's I don't even want to think about it, honestly. I don't even want to think about it.
Maybe all of the bad, like you mentioned, this current administration deciding they want to have an axe to grind against specific social media companies, but then that indirectly loops in all the social media companies, even the ones he's favorited, i.e. X and Truth Social, for example. They are roped into this whole thing, and as a result, they got a moderator, whatever the case may be. Or maybe, like you mentioned, everybody, we're so litigious in this country that everybody sues, to where it's like, all right, Now we can't not do anything because we can't get anything done. So maybe that forces the hand of um, our elected officials and us, right? Because if social media, let's just say it goes to where everything is getting jammed up. We stop using social media and we actually go outside and touch grass. Maybe that, indirectly,
Wouldn't that be
slows things
nice?
down, to where we're not so focused on social media, because it's so
Well,
unusable because of all the reasons I just mentioned.
that would be ideal, but I think at this point you can't discount the influencer economy in this
Yeah, there's
country.
gonna be broken
Like
collateral
there,
damage. I get
yeah,
it. I
yeah,
get it.
you
And that's unsad. That's unfortunate. I get it.
yeah, it's not gonna be a good look. It's not gonna I don't think they get this done because again, I don't think you get one done without the other. And I don't know. I don't see it getting done.
So here's my question: you don't see it getting done. What would you like? Because I think of the three of us, you have been the one to spend the most. I mean, this is your life's work. You work with children who this stuff affects
Yeah.
severely. What do you want to happen in this?
Well, honestly, I'm not looking for a government solution, truthfully, anymore, because I just don't see us providing one. I don't see our government providing one. I have really, I won't say shifted my focus or shifted my mindset, but I definitely talk more about parental involvement and the idea of not necessarily waiting till 8, because there's a whole movement about wait till 8 to give your kids a cell phone, but delaying that process as long as possible. And leading by example and teaching sort of a mindfulness and an intentionality around digital usage in general, and more digital literacy in schools and classes, and more media literacy in schools. So it's sort of more of a preventive thing, and trying. I mean, I know human nature is what it is. Everybody's not going to be nice people. I get it. But understanding what is actually at stake when you behave a certain way on the internet, I think can sort of influence behavior, influence digital behavior to a certain extent, if it's consistent, if we're consistently showing these messages, if we're consistently giving kids these messages around the consequences of your online behavior, how that affects other people. I think if they can get that message consistently, we can move that needle just a slight bit. But I just don't think our government's going to do it. I hate to be so cynical and pessimistic. But we've had plenty of examples with what Europe has done, and how they've like the blueprint is there. We have just chosen to ignore it and not do it. So I don't see
With the
us.
Europe thing, have they evolved into what they have now, or did it come out the gate like that? I think that's the difference with EU in some of these things. They came out the gate, firing as far as regulation
Absolutely.
was
And
concerned, to
said,
where
yeah, if you go this up here, you can't do this and you can't collect
right.
that, which is what we should have done. You know what I
Right.
mean? There's
So
no
the cats, I don't think there's putting how they say, putting toothpaste back in the tube.
Yeah.
I don't see how we evolve into let me not say evolve. I don't see how we consciously evolve into a better social media or just internet,
Better
society,
digital
right?
citizens.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, better digital citizens. It's almost like to where with Americans specifically, we've got to be shamed or scared or sued into submission.
And it's like
So,
until it happens to you or
Yeah.
your kid,
right.
and even then that may not
Mhm,
change the behavior, unfortunately. But I feel like if we start young, and
mhm.
like I said, delay the phone, give them like a 7-year-old just doesn't need a smartphone. They don't, for
Um,
anything. And so like get them a flip phone if they need to, or a little cricket or some joint. But a 7 to 8 year, a 10-year-old, 11-year-old doesn't need a smartphone.
a,
A 12-year-old doesn't need social media. They don't.
a
They
good
just don't.
a good friend of mine did not allow his child to have a cell phone until I believe she was in the 8th grade. So it was around 11, 12 years old was when she got her first cell phone. But even before that, with tablets, I remember people, I was, over to his house, and I remember someone asking, well, how do you control what she does on it? It's like, he's literally like, he could, it doesn't take much to push his buttons. Like, what do you mean? And like, I told her she can't have one.
Right.
What the problem is? Well, what about all their friends and a little this and a little that? I ain't that daddy. I don't care about what all they do. It's like she can't have one until this time. So there were stages. When he got her a tablet, she wasn't able to log into the tablet. Bring the tablet to daddy or to mommy. They will log in, and then you have to be where they are. Like when she first started using a tablet, she was in the room with me because I was making sure she was doing what I was allowing her to do.
And there are so many
Yeah,
parents
yeah,
that are
yeah.
not
And
doing
so,
that.
that's the
And
thing. It's like if we
it's
could, yeah.
crazy. It's just crazy. And we have to figure, I don't even know if figure out is the right term, but we have to get back to that
Mm-hmm.
place where
And I guess that's the
parents are
question. How do
making,
we get there? How do we
I don't
get
know.
there?
I don't know. Honestly, if I knew, I'd be out of business. Good, but because I'm doing a seminar in a couple weeks and they, the questions they want, we need resources. What do you put on your phone if you need to, da, 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 and I'm like, I can tell you all the tech that is available, but if you don't have that kind of relationship with your kid, all the tech in the world ain't gonna make a difference because they're still gonna
They're gonna
figure out
wait until 16 and go buck wild.
and go ahead and that's the thing. It's like you have to get back to a place where, number one, you're the lawmaker in your household. You're setting the rules and the standards, and you can do that in conjunction with your kid. You don't have to be a dictator. You can do that in conjunction with your kid, but there have to be rules established.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot just hand your child a device and leave them to their own devices because it's not going to work. It's just not going to work. And that is what so many parents do. They don't want their kid to be the only one with no phone and feel left out and get teased and bullied because they don't have no phone. So they get them this phone, but they don't know enough about it to go. They don't know how to go into Roblox and set parental controls or make sure that you're not in the chat on, some game or what. Like they don't know. They have no idea how to do any of that kind of thing. And then when something happens, everybody's surprised, everybody's caught off guard, everybody's like, oh my God, I had no idea she was talking to a 35-year-old man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's just insane. And it's like, and I tell her, the first thing I tell her, I'm like, you got to do that work. Like
Yeah.
you have to be a parent. Like it sucks because this is one more thing on top of everything else it means to be a parent. This is one more thing you have to learn, but you have to learn it. You have to do it. You just have to do it.
I think part of it is that there's a whole lot of parents that are more interested in being a child's friend than being their parent.
I don't even think that's it. I think like Stephanie mentioned, parents are just overloaded with all the other things they got to think about. And a lot of times a tablet or a phone for a young kid starts off as a pacifier. Go sit over there and be quiet.
Hand your 2-year-old the tablet.
Because your
Here's
mommy
my
is
phone.
trying, because your mommy's trying to work during the day and then launch this business on the side, and daddy's working 2 and 3 and 4 jobs. And, it starts off as a pacifier and the kids sit over there and it's like, oh, she's quiet. So now I can get this thing done because I'm trying to build this, my dreaded word, generational wealth that we're trying to build. And as a result,
even if you're not trying to do that, even if you just want to take a shower,
just saying,
right. You need 15 minutes and you hand them the phone, and it's just like, because and I think a lot of parents make the mistake because they see the kid because the kids are digital natives, they assume they know They just assume they automatically know what the dangers of the internet
Mm-mm.
are and how to manage their own profiles and how not to get canceled and
Or
caught
get
up in
fished.
and yeah, get catfished. And they just assume because they're always on their phones. And oh my God, they're always on their phones. I mean, we can't even get them off their phones to come to dinner.
I know
But
how
see,
to get
that's
them
the
off their
problem.
phones.
That's the problem.
Here's what we got to do. Let's normalize making kids love cereal boxes again. When we was all kids, remember how we would fight over who
Man.
got to sit in front of the
All
cereal
right.
box.
All
Like
right
it was
now.
a
Wait.
newspaper. You
All
was
right.
but
Now.
you can absolutely turn that Wi-Fi off
Yes.
in your
Well,
house
listen,
for
you got to
however many.
listen, you got to take the electronics, because these kids are smart enough. They'll hotspot off their cell phone and be right
Right.
back on their
True.
computer doing
And
whatever. So
and that's the thing.
you
You have
gotta
to
Yeah.
you have to be a parent. You have to
hmm
be. I don't know. And I hate saying that to people because they get very offended because they think I'm attacking their parenting skills, but there isn't any gadget. There's no magical, mythical device or
Social media
app
is not gonna
or
do it.
software or gadget or
Politicians ain't gonna
any.
do it.
They're not. It's like you have to be a parent. I don't know how else to say that to people. And like I said,
Yeah.
I hate making people feel offended, but I'm just
And even
like I said,
then, there ain't no true guarantee of success anyway, because I don't want to say the road to hell is paved with good intentions, but I'm pretty sure these kids that are acting up in school, you've got these kids out in the suburbs. Speaking of which, my kids are out in the suburbs. We don't have to worry about school fights, and we don't have to worry about our kids getting roasted to oblivion because of what they wearing. They don't have to worry about, who's wearing what designer stuff at our school. Our school, you got to worry about kids getting not weed high, but like cocaine and heroin high in the bathroom,
right,
and schools getting shot up. So
right.
it's like, it's all, even if you could do the best you can as a parent, and then
Yeah,
the kids are still going to
it is.
act up.
They gonna do what they
Yeah.
gonna do, but
hmm
that's where you start.
Yeah. Sure. Sure.
As
Sure.
far as the devices go,
Yeah. Sure.
like, they if your child is of the mind that they gonna do what they and they gonna hop on their friend's phone as soon as they get to school because my mom won't buy me a phone, but I'm gonna get on my friend's phone and do a burner Finsta account and whatever, they gonna do that. And there's literally nothing you can do to
Mm-hmm.
stop that.
Yeah.
But you can have had that
I
conversation
did my
with them.
best. I did my
Yes.
best.
Yes,
hmm
you can have already had that conversation with them to show them what could potentially happen. This ain't me trying to scare you. I just want you to know what is out there. This is how we figure out what's real and what's not online, because AI will have you not even believing your own eyes. This is how we
Mm-hmm.
determine who we don't take any friend requests from anybody we don't know in real life, because there's no way. When I tell you, there's a part of my presentation I do with Till Death You Tweet with the kids, and I have a video of myself using one of TikTok's. I forget the name of the filter. I think it's called Kid or something like that. Child filter. I literally look like I'm about 10 in the video. And I play that video and I'm like, hey, how old y'all think that person is right there? And they're like, eight, 12. I'm like, that's me. And the mouths just drop. And
Mm-hmm.
in the video I do for the parents, I have that video of me with the filter and like split screen with me in real life talking and saying like I saved both of them so
Mm-hmm.
you can see me. And when they see that, I mean, when I tell you their eyes pop out of, I'm like, there is, because when I ask kids, like, how would you know
If you're talking to an adult.
if you were
Yeah.
talking to an adult? Well, I would just FaceTime them for real. You
hmm
think that's going, like, they literally have
That's what they
AI
want
real.
you to do.
That's what they want you to do. Exactly. So you can take your top off or something, not nonsense like that. But it's like there is no way. So you have to be able to sit down. And I guess that's why I do the work I do, because everybody doesn't know these things.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't know what the right things are to tell their kid and to say to their kid. So this is why I do the work, but that's what needs to happen. These types of conversations that we're having right here need to be
Mm-hmm.
happening in households everywhere, every household in the country. regularly, like, every 6 months, every quarter, whatever that looks like, regularly having these conversations, helping your kid understand that the internet is not always a good place.
All right, y'all. Section 230. It may not be a thing. Hopefully it still
I
will
don't
be.
know. I don't know. I don't know how we get there.
Yo, before we get on up out of here, I do want to let everybody know that the weather's changing. We are officially now in spring. So go out and get you some of those spring t-shirts and spring baseball jerseys and spring baseball hats and all that kind of good stuff with the Tech John logo on it. You could do so by heading over to thetechjohn.com/shop. You're going to find a whole slew of stuff with our pretty mugs on them. So go ahead over to thetechjohn.com/shop if you are interested in any type of merchandise. And here's the thing, for anybody who's listening who has any merchandise that you've picked up from our shop, send us a picture of it. So we can shout you out and show that on maybe on the website. So with that being said, Tech Life Steph, tell folks how they can get at you.
You can follow me all around the web at Tech Life Steph, or head to my website at stephaniehumphrey.com. I'm going to do a shameless plug. I always plug my newsletter. However, I also have an online course for parents. It is not expensive. You would have access to the information and any updates that I would post forever. But there is an online course that I put together for parents. It's a video course. I think it's like 10 pretty short videos. I don't think any of them are more than 15 minutes long to watch. And then there's like some questions you can answer after each video. But it kind of goes over this conversation we just had and kind of gives you some tools and some context in which to start having that conversation with your kid. So head to my website. It's on there. But yeah, you got to arm yourself with information. Seriously.
And you can find me all over the internet at Brother Tech. That's BROTHATECH.
And you can find me on all things at Robb Dunewood, and you can find us at all things at thetechjohn.com. That's not right. At the Tech John, the Tech John, the Tech JEWN. I told y'all I'm tired. This is show 6 today. So, with that being said, let's get on up out of here.
Peace.